Howdy, folks. We will be starting the show with Ack in a minute, but wanted to get going here because we have some breaking news, and it's going to be one of the larger subjects of the day. The the mess that is the Philadelphia Flyers. Apparently, there was a lot of chatter yesterday about Dave Hakstol being let go and Joel Quenneville being put in place, and that the brakes were put on that last night and early this morning. But Russ, you got a report that says
Dave Hakstol has been fired.
Dave
I won't
Hakstol
say again, but we all knew it was coming. We're just seeing that now it's confirmed.
Okay.
John Borak of CSN, NBC Sports, reported it, so I'll give him credit.
Okay.
I mean, so where do we start? My dog has to go out. We start with me taking my dog out.
Okay, I'll cover for a second because I can do that. live podcasting and webcasting, folks. All right. Based on all the things that have happened over the last few days and the way that the Flyers have played, you knew that Hakstol was dead man walking. It's been that case ever since Ron Hextall was fired and Chuck Fletcher was eventually brought in, and the review of Hakstol by Fletcher, where Fletcher goes on this road trip, and they, other than the game against Buffalo where they won running away, it was a terrible road trip. They lost to Edmonton. They lose the collapse against Calgary. They get throttled by Vancouver. The goaltending situation has not improved. In fact, it's gotten worse to the point that we'll talk about this in a little bit, that they've called up Carter Hart. It's not an understatement to say this, and I've been saying this for a few weeks. The Philadelphia Flyers are a crap show. It's a tire fire. And now I think, part one of what we think is going to happen, Russ, now has happened. Hakstol is finally gone. Part two, we're waiting to see, and that'll be the interesting thing.
But here's what happens in the process. So I'm not sure why they had practice today. I would have canceled practice today. All you basically did was invite the media in to report that Dave Hakstol got fired when he was supposed to be out on the ice with that group for practice, because he reported that yesterday to reporters. So there's that. Okay. Plans change, but now Chris Knobloch is running the practice. Chris Knobloch's not doing a very good job with the power play either. So the fact that Chris Knobloch is actually running a practice, they should have no practice. The fact that they had practice today really is a bad look.
All right, yeah. Let's Hi guys, sorry I'm late. I was making a couple calls real quickly there too to try to get to a little bit more at the bottom of this of what exactly is happening. Obviously, you guys announced what's happening already.
Yeah. I broke out my marshmallows and weenies for the weenie roast because we got a fire on our hands, folks.
Yeah. To say that this whole thing has been
surreal,
handled well would be an overstatement.
Handled well.
Beyond all else. But let's not even get into that for a second.
I've seen military coups that were more organized.
That's true.
There's a reason, and I want to paint the picture that I think that's happening, and based on what I just heard and what I've been talking to, and what I've been doing over the last couple of days, and what I've been writing about.
Right.
I was the one who broke the story yesterday that this Quenneville thing was happening, and then of course everybody else came out with all the different things, and
right. And
the funniest moment yesterday was NBC, NHL and NBC reporting that it was done, which is owned by Comcast, which is also when NBC comes up with it saying it's done, and then because Darren Dreger says it might not be done. Can you just imagine what's really happening there?
I know. And look, and Dave Isaac reported what he got from a source, which was correct.
Yeah.
People should stop bagging on that too.
Well, people are going to bag on Dave, and Dave Isaac did a good job, and
he did a good job.
And I'll tell you how funny that you want to hear something hilarious. Okay, yesterday my family celebrates Christmas. People think that I'm Jewish, but I'm not. I have a Jewish family.
I never thought you were Jewish, just to be fair.
A lot of people do, Russ. I get a lot of people.
No, I can see it.
Which is fine. My wife is Jewish. I love Jewish people.
I think it's because your wife is Jewish. Some of it has rubbed off on you.
I love matzo ball soup.
Absolutely. The Fabulous Mrs. Maisel is a phenomenal show. I love it. Anyway, so all right. Here's the thing. So yesterday, my my family is for the first time doing something that I hate to do for Christmas. There's a point to this. Okay. So we always celebrate Christmas here at my house because my wife's also horribly allergic to cats, which is my sister's house. My sister has cats, so we can't go there. So we, in our Jewish household here, we do a Christmas thing. My family decided they were going to go to Disney for Christmas this year. So yesterday was our Christmas celebration at my house. So this is all going on. So my sister gets over here and she's like, well, of course, everyone's asking you, what's going on? What's going on with Hakstol? What's going on? Because they're all Flyers fans, right? And then my sister informs us at the Christmas dinner, oh, you know what? It's going to happen. Dave Isaac, and he's a real reporter, just reported it.
Oh.
So she says this. my own sister.
Wow.
Says this to me. And I look at her like, are you kidding? And she was like, no, I know. I mean, I know you're a real reporter too, but this is another guy. And
but he's a real reporter.
I'm like, yeah, he is. So I'm like, have I shown you my press pass? I'm like, so we're just dying. It was really funny. Anyway, so
it really is like a Jewish family where they basically degrade whatever you do for a living.
These are my family.
I know, but they act like a Jewish family is what I'm saying.
No, you're right.
By
because
extension.
From the Jewish side too. I'm cracking up. I'm like, yeah, so then NBC does it. And I'm like, well, NBC, that's for sure is like,
the gospel.
So then the funny thing is, so what happened in NBC. The guy who tweets for NBC puts this out there because he knows this happens, right? And then he's not, but the Flyers don't want this out there. The Comcast doesn't want this out there, and they don't want NBC putting it out there for sure. So then the NBC guy who works for the company that owns the Philadelphia Flyers goes on and says that Darren Dreger, wait a second, Darren Dreger is saying this might not be happening. Yeah, remember, this is his own company. He's now saying that Darren Dreger is saying that somebody might not be fired from our own company.
And I'll go even one further than that. By extension, Darren Dreger works for NBC because he appears on the NBC broadcast.
Right. But Darren, Darren's not that and as connected as the NBC guy who's tweeting for NBC, right? So
that's correct.
He wouldn't be putting it before NBC and NHL and NBC would be putting something on there. You would think that they would probably get this confirmed. All right, so someone confirmed it, but then someone said, no, wait, we can't confirm it. So then they pretended to not have it for real, which is really funny. So here's what I think happened. All right. The Flyers, to say there was tampering, the Flyers are terrified of tampering right now. That's what's happening. Okay, the Flyers, because they did not ask for permission to talk to Quenneville. Okay, I was told this. All right, so this is a problem, right? So, but they did, and they did not talk to Quenneville. All right, because understand this too. But then people have to understand how the hockey world actually works to get rid of that.
But wait, to be fair, there was a tweet that we saw that Quenneville was in Philadelphia.
But he wasn't. That tweet was wrong. He was in Colorado. I found this yesterday because I was chasing him. He was in Colorado.
That's all I want to know.
On a Christmas ski vacation, which apparently has been planned for a long time. Which is apparently why
that's what we heard. But then we did see that tweet, and I didn't know if it was real. Now you debunked it. That's good.
Yeah, no, it wasn't. I chased it down. All right, so anyway, so the Flyers. Here's the thing about this whole situation and how rumors work. And it's a really good lesson in rumor working, okay? Because this whole thing is something that I deal with all the time. What goes on here is that if, like I've always said, it's really hard to get somebody to actually. It's hard to get somebody to actually admit that a rumor that I asked them is true. That's really hard to do. People will not often say, "Well, that we're actually talking about this." It's hard to get that. But it's not hard to get people to tell me that a rumor is not true. That is incredibly easy. Then that in my life that I spend more time, and I have sources I only talk to who will only talk to me to tell me no. And so if they don't talk to me, I know that there's something to it because they will tell me no. All right. So understand that the Flyers hadn't officially talked to Quenneville. Hakstol is still there. Okay. Quenneville's not going to admit to anything while another coach is still coaching the Flyers because that's just wrong in every which way. And and Quenneville's a professional, right? So he's not going to do that. That's stupid. But if Quenneville wasn't willing to come to the Flyers, and if the Hawks weren't willing to let him come to the Flyers, somebody would have let that be known to the Flyers. The Flyers would know that, okay? Because and without talking to him officially, it's obvious. I mean, it's not like wait, the Flyers are interested in me. Quenneville didn't wake up yesterday and realize that. This whole situation has been going for a long time. So he knows he knows that this is happening. So even though the Flyers hadn't talked to him, officially and hadn't done anything wrong or tampering,
Sure.
they knew from not getting from the people that they know that know him that there was a willingness to discuss this, to talk about it for sure. But that's all they knew, and they knew that if it wasn't going to happen, then they would have definitely known that. Okay, that we would have known. So that's what we have to kind of remember. So in a way, like I try to write every morning, no one's lying here. Like Drager's not lying when he writes that Quenneville hasn't finished anything. Isaac's not lying when he confirms the source. I'm not lying when I do what I do.
There's only one explanation here, Ak. If everybody's telling the truth, which I assume they are, there's only one explanation. If Quenneville has not said, "I'm coming," if they've made the move now to fire Hakstol, and Quenneville was not in Philadelphia eating a cheesesteak. He was in Colorado skiing with his family.
Yes.
Which I had been out there for in terms of speculation.
Yeah.
Then there has also been speculation out there that Quenneville is not going to take the job until after the vacation is done.
Right.
Now,
okay. Scott Gordon has been announced as the interim coach for the Philadelphia Flyers.
There you go.
So that is that, and that's what. So and this is Scott Gordon is the coach of the Lehigh Valley Phantoms right now. So he's been brought down, and he was, of course, previously a coach of the Rangers.
Let me wedge in here because I always felt like he was going to be the interim.
Right.
Why didn't this happen a week and a half ago?
That is what I don't understand, Russ. And you're 100% right.
I can explain this one if you want. I can.
Go ahead.
No, yeah, because go ahead. Go explain it.
The explanation. This is me just sort of doing detective work, and me just having a gut feeling. The gut feeling is they thought maybe they could persuade Quenneville, if he is still interested in the job, to come earlier, and they didn't want to upset Lehigh Valley, so they sort of let Hakstol hang out there for a few days while they were trying to work this through. It didn't work out, so now they have to upset Lehigh Valley. Yeah. And this is only from a coaching perspective. We'll get into the other part of this mess later, but that's why I think that happened.
I think that you may be right about some of that. I also think that there was a belief that the Hakstol thing would give them enough of a bump to get Hakstol through the next 2 weeks, at least, without the team completely falling apart. Okay. That was to me incredibly short-sighted. Like that's where they made the biggest mistake, because, and in the press conference, I flat out asked Paul Holmgren this question. I'm like, don't you think this is unfair to Hakstol? And don't you think the fans and the players are going to respond badly to this? And he said, no. And he said, no, Hakstol's a professional coach. He's still an NHL coach. The fans I'm not worried about. This all was somewhat predictable. It wasn't predictable how much they would spiral out of control, but they did from the time Hakstol left. Hakstol was definitely dead man walking, right? And the players also knew that some of them were going to get traded. So everything was completely up in the air.
Well, okay, here's the thing. This Wednesday is the trade freeze, so you can forget them making a deal until after. Well, wait. Let me just finish my thought. You can forget them making a trade until after the 26th, until after Boxing Day. They've got 4 games between now and Christmas. At home against the Flyers, at home against Nashville, at home against the Columbus Blue Jackets, and on the 23rd against the Rangers.
You said the Flyers.
They're not playing themselves.
You meant the Red Wings.
Yeah, they're not.
Sorry, Red Wings, Nashville, Columbus at home, and then the Rangers on the 23rd. I'm telling you right now, if they lose 3 or 4 of those games, or they lose all 4 of those games, that the whole point of them hiring Quenneville, if the point of it is to get back into the playoff race, they're done. They're too far behind.
I'll tell you this, from the business world standpoint, which I was in for a while, they are doing the all hands on deck approach, and it doesn't work with a pro hockey team, and I'll tell you why. Chris Knobloch was running practice today. The power play stinks. The fact that Chris Knobloch has a job, we have to worry about and say we're not even sure why that even still exists. The fact that Ian LePerrier still has a job, no offense to Ian, we all love him, but he's done a lousy job. He still has a job too. So now Gordon is the interim of 2 guys that we know are not going to be there for very long.
This continues now. This
whole thing just still continues, and for the players, it now becomes very confusing. Like even today, I saw that there was a practice line of Nolan Patrick in the middle, Claude Giroux on the wing, and Travis Konechny on the other wing. Like, absolutely everything is upside down with this team right now.
Yeah, they are repeating the issue, like, by keeping these assistant coaches around. But the problem is, like, they're the perfect storm that hit them as well. And this I think was this road trip came at the worst possible time for them, because they to fire Hakstol when he's in Western Canada, goes back to like Gerard Gallant type things, and no one wanted to do that. That's what I heard. So it's like, you're not going to fire a guy. But it's honestly what had to happen right away. When Holmgren fires Hakstol, Holmgren becomes coach and GM. That's what happens. And Holmgren becomes coach and GM until another GM and another coach are hired. I don't know why that didn't happen immediately. That to me was the only option that you had. And, and the assistant coaches, then, yeah, you can leave them along because you do want to let the new coach hire his assistants. And that what's happening. So Dave Scott is letting Holmgren hire his guy. And now, Holmgren's guy is going to hire his guy. This is a very Comcast corporate, thing. Like you've been in business, Russ. That's what's happening here. This is a Comcast.
Yeah, it is. And I know things, you can't control everything, right? But they've literally controlled none of it for this whole time. Like, actually, and Chuck Fletcher is now culpable in this too, because he's not been able to pull off a deal. And here's the inner workings of that. At the end of the day, we knew it would be hard to make a deal. He didn't say, I probably can't make a deal past Christmas, and he didn't say I'd make one in the next day, but Dave Scott and he gave the impression they were going to make a deal.
Actually, I did hear.
Let me just finish, and then you can tell me what you heard. So they didn't make a deal yet. It's going to get harder. And I even think the fan base would have been okay with overpaying in a deal to make that deal, especially if it was going to be a goalie, because now you've called up a 21-year-old goalie that is not ready for the NHL.
And I'm sorry, I will be controlled, but what idiocy! I mean, the one thing you can have your problems with Ron Heck and things, but the one thing, if
20-year-old, not 21, he's not 21 yet.
Right, but the one thing that I think most people agree on is the fact that Carter Hart has not earned his way to the NHL yet, because he's not playing well. He's just starting to play well in the American Hockey League. You're rushing him. You're throwing him to the wolves behind a defense that has no concept of what the hell they're doing. And I'm sorry, you want to ruin a top prospect? Do what the Flyers are doing right now, because they're throwing this kid to the wolves. Okay. They really are.
Let's pause for a second there. So and get back to that, because that's definitely we have to talk about that. So I did hear Fletcher was telling people that he had a trade that he was going to make before the 19th. That was pretty significant. And that was on it was last week, so like Thursday or Friday.
Okay.
That I heard that. That's so I heard that. So that's, for what it's worth, I did hear that. Now, and this also goes into the whole craziness that happened over the weekend, where the Flyers announced both of their goalies were starting on Twitter, right, against the Vancouver.
Correct.
All right. They did. And then I was told the reason that didn't happen was because Alex Lyon was part of a deal, and that they were, because the Flyers are a little bit gun shy of getting goalies hurt right now, which would make a little, you can understand why. But so they're like,
wait. All right, so let me pause that right there. Yeah. If they are a little gun shy of getting goalies hurt, why did you play Anthony Stolarz, who had 2 meniscus surgeries, 9 straight games, and doing something that Hakstol, I don't think, has done his entire time here, play a goalie on back-to-back games, right? Like, which I still, I hate that. I hate that they don't play goalies on back-to-back games ever. But I think that, it was so out of character for Hakstol to do that. That's why you knew that Lyon was being moved. Now, I also think the reason that Lyon is going to the minors is because he is being moved. All right, and I do believe that the Flyers are getting another goalie, and I am not going to go on. I'm going to tell you right now that I would not be 100% surprised if Carter Hart never actually plays for the Flyers in this. Sure, I mean, that's possible, but the bigger question is, do we know for certain Michael Neuvirth is coming back off of leave?
No, yes, I think his wife had the baby.
And if that,
so Neubert's coming back, he might get hurt. Hart might play.
No, he might play, but you can't really. At some point, I mean, the Stolarz is hurt. If they're trading Alex the Lion, like I call him, if they're trading him, then you can see where they're going to be willing to have Hart be the backup, and if he has to play, he can.
You could have
for one game. I'm not saying for the whole week.
No, I get it. But they could have avoided all of this by not releasing Cal Pickard. They did that as a knee-jerk reaction.
Yep.
They also knew they were having trouble with goalies this year. They also knew, and again, this is why I tweeted they've not handled the goalies well. Right now, Brian Elliott is in some doctor's office at an appointment. There's a veil of secrecy with that one. I can only imagine what's happening on that front.
Yeah, let's waive the one goaltender who isn't hurt. That's the brilliant move.
It doesn't matter that he didn't play well. And I want to also say this. There's also another reporter. I'm not going to say who it is. If you want to go read his tweets, that's fine. That said, well, Alex Lydon didn't play well. So what other option did they really have? You know what? It doesn't matter whether Alex Lydon played well or not. Very few goalies are going to play well with this defense.
Right.
With the team up in the air. Just to call a guy up based on that basis makes no sense.
And I will retract my fury at the call-up of Carter Hart if they actually do that. If he's only there to be the disaster backup, to be the backup, and
that doesn't mean he won't play.
Right. And if they put him in for his first NHL start in this situation, and I relayed this to you on the weekend, Russ, it was. If we ever have Marty Baron on the show, and Marty Baron's great to talk to. I've talked to him in the press box, and he's you ask him one question, he goes on for an hour. Ask him about his NHL debut. I think he was a 19-year-old goaltender, first-round pick of the Buffalo Sabres, and I think it was Barrasso and some other goaltender were either sick or injured, and they call him up out of the queue to start against the Pittsburgh Penguins in Pittsburgh, and this is the Mario Lemieux Jaromir Jagr Penguins, and he gets destroyed and loses 8-1. I don't think that type of thing helps a young goaltender get confidence in their NHL career.
Right.
So if you want to do that, go ahead. But
I'm getting texts.
Well, of course it doesn't, but
I'm getting texts from fans that are completely confused.
Oh yeah, no, that there's no question about that. Like I have a friend
and that's the worst part of all this is the fans, and I keep hearing I'm a paying customer, and it's true. These fans are out in the cold. They have no idea what's going on.
You do have to. I mean, you could say the Carter Hart situation. I mean, you can sit there and say the Flyers handled this poorly, but really they have very little choice right now. Right
now, today, this moment, you know what they could have done? Fletcher could have picked up somebody off of waiver wire. That's what he could have done.
Yeah, he could have claimed Chad Johnson. He was on the waivers last week.
No, because the Anaheim, couldn't Anaheim get?
No.
Anaheim is
they could have claimed Chad Johnson. That would have been fine.
Yeah. I do agree. I think that they just kept thinking, and I don't know why they would think this, but that how many goalies can get hurt and how.
If that's the thinking again, you can't think that way. And the other thing is, someday somebody has to evaluate the whole situation here.
Yeah.
From medical to how we play the goalies to goalie coach to how many games we play them, to sports science, to all of it, because none of it is playing in concert right now.
Yeah, this is like the Mets back in the day, Russ, when they had Paul Wilson, Bill Pulsifer, all of them had to have Tommy John surgery or had elbow problems. There's something wrong when everybody in your organization has the same. I mean, it's not the same injury, but this in the same position has multiple injuries and they can never stay healthy. It's not just random. It's something else.
I would like to say that, yes, but these guys that are having these injuries, let's just go with the first two guys, Elliott and Neuwirth, okay?
Okay.
They have this injury is not new to the Flyers. Like these injuries, like Elliott, both were hurt a lot before they got to Flyers.
Yes.
Now you can argue, you can make the argument is not that there's something the training staff's doing something weird or something like that. You can just say the Flyers are picking up notably hurt injured goalies, right? That's
but that was Exhibit A in the case to fire Hakstol, because after last year, after having to go through and Lyon coming up and Neuwirth being hurt and Elliott playing in the playoffs hurt, the thing that you had to think of was, okay, we need to go out and get another goaltender, and they didn't, because they had term left on Neuwirth's contract and term left on Elliott's contract, and the organization decided that they were in a posture of contending for the Stanley Cup. That's the only reason why they go out and sign JVR and spend $7 million a year.
We're forgetting this is not like a time lapse thing we're watching. They had 8 games after Anthony Stellaris played to make some sort of decision, trade, waiver wire, or something to make sure he didn't play 9 straight games.
Yeah, I know, and they didn't
do that.
It's crazy on Stellaris when you think about the fact that he wasn't even the backup for the Phantoms when the season began.
He played 3 games this year because he came back from a bad surgery.
So let me ask this question, because
got a lot of cuts, but I mean, geez.
Let me ask this question and get your reaction to it, because right now I think there's nothing certain going on with the Flyers right now. And I asked Russ this earlier. What happens?
Define certain.
Right. What happens if Joel Quenneville isn't taking this job?
All right, that is extremely possible. It really doesn't matter, because you can't continue with Hakstol no matter what.
Oh, I know. But what I'm saying,
but that's not what he's really getting at.
Okay, so Quenneville ponders through his Christmas vacation, and on the 26th, Paul Holmgren calls him up and says, "Okay, Joel, do you want the job or not?" And he says, "Nah, I thought about it, Paul. I'm not going to do it." Okay, so are you going to stick with Scott Gordon for the rest of the year as your interim? Are you going to go out and talk to Alain Vigneault or Mike Yeo or John Stevens?
You might be in a lose for use posture if Quenneville says no.
Thank you. And that, you know what? That would be smart for the first thing that they've done.
The reason you get Quenneville now, Mike, the reason you get Quenneville now is not for the rest of this year to be competitive. You get Quenneville now because these kind of guys are not available very often. And,
I agree.
So they realize this. That's why they're pushing this. They know that this is the other thing I said in my blog, and I'll repeat kind of what I said before. If the Flyers thought that Quenneville wasn't available at all, they would have squashed it by now. They would have squashed the idea.
I agree with that.
That they were even talking to him, because what they're doing is they're setting themselves up for a terrible thing.
But it's not a lock. It's not a lock, because if it was a lock, it would have been done already.
No. Right. It wouldn't have been done already, because Hakstol was fired within the hour. Okay.
But essentially, Hakstol's been fired for a week.
Right. He was dead man walking. He was dead man walking.
Quenneville, from what I was told, Quenneville was like, "Talk to me when Hakstol's gone," and because Quenneville knows about the tampering stuff. No one wants to screw with that, right? So everyone's like, "Talk to me when Quenneville's gone," because Quenneville, if he gets caught for tampering, remember, like he could lose his salary for Chicago, you know. So I mean, the fact is he's sitting there and taking all the money, and he's taking $5 million to sit there and do nothing for the rest of the year in Chicago.
I might be wrong. I'm not a lawyer, and it could be in the language of the deal. But Chicago fired him. It's not like he resigned. There's a difference. If he resigned, then they have him under. Then they still have him under control.
From what I was told, you know, and this could be part of Quenneville's. I don't know.
It might be
Quenneville's specific contract with them. But that if they're smart, they would have made this part of their specific contract, because they want to keep him away from their end.
So let's go back to this, Ek. Let's say that's right, Mike's wrong, whatever. We don't know. We're not.
That's usually the case. So go ahead. Let's go on.
Let's say that really is the case.
First time for anything.
Right. Now we can all relate to that. What you just said, that scenario makes sense. Go ahead.
Right. Let's go back to the fact that Scott Gordon could have been coaching this whole time. Why hasn't he been?
Yeah, I mean that is what is confusing to me, and I'm going to lay this on Holmgren big time, because I do think that Dave Scott trusted Holmgren, and I think Holmgren, there's a certain amount of, I love Paul Holmgren, and yesterday sucked, because I'm writing this story about this, and if it's one thing to write a story like this and kind of hang yourself out there. Mm-hmm. When it's any other team, but when it's the team that is your home team, the team that credentials you, it's tricky. I mean, I'm like, you got to realize you're not friends with these guys, right? You got to report what you're going to report. So it blew. I mean, I hated the whole day. I hated today until this Hakstol. I mean, I needed, I was like, God, what? Because anything can fall apart at any time. But Holmgren, I really got the sense at that press conference, and I've gotten the sense before that Holmgren is perfectly willing to, if the choice is A, and if it's six and one half, dozen the other, Holmgren will go conservative every time. Like he's one of these guys who would just, and to hit, sometimes doing nothing is a way of doing something. And I think that what he did here was, this will work out. And that's what I'm saying. I think it's wrong. Like, I think it's the wrong way to do it. But he's like, think this will, the Hakstol firing, we'll get another guy in here. We'll convince Quenneville to come right away. All this stuff, and he took some leaps of faith that I don't think he should have taken. Why would you? The bigger question to me, Russ, is why did they have to fire Hakstol when they did? Like,
right.
If they weren't going to make, unless they felt.
I told you though, I felt like that was a situation where
something happened.
Tempers got involved. Something happened. So there's an immediate dismissal, and everybody's caught by surprise.
Yeah, something happened there. I mean, they were thinking about it, but then something happened.
Right.
Hakstol probably caught wind that they were thinking about it. That's my guess. Like Hakstol, somebody, one of Hakstol's spies, whether it was Murph or whoever it was, caught wind that they were thinking about getting rid of him, and there you have it. So, because the problem is that gap there, like you're not or they felt like there was a guy, or I kept thinking, is this tied to Nylander? Like, because you kept thinking, because you felt like there had to be something timely. Like Hakstol wasn't willing to trade what it took to get Nylander, so maybe they were but they didn't go after Nylander.
No.
And so so that's not the case. Then you think, okay, Quenneville, but Quenneville's not yet. So if Quenneville's not yet, and then there's no reason to, they could have let Hakstol go another week, and no one would have gotten hurt. It wasn't like he was going to make any moves. He wasn't going to make moves. So that to me is like, so looking back on this.
But I told you, going back to that, that's how I know they didn't have a plan in place.
Right.
Oh,
the way.
No, Holmgren.
No, they didn't have a long range plan in place. No, they didn't.
I just think happened that they didn't plan on. Like, I think that
it would be one thing if they had, if it had been organized. If this had been organized, what should have happened is that you fire Hakstol and Hakstol at the same time, that you name an interim coach. And then you had Holmgren, and like Holmgren did until they hired Fletcher, take over as interim GM until they hired a GM, and then let the GM hire the coach. That would be the organized way. Instead, they fire one, they hire the GM. They leave the coach out hanging for almost 2 weeks.
Yeah, this
was held
that Hakstol's firing was something happened, and they did it quicker than they wanted to.
Right.
And Holmgren, for whatever reason, didn't do the right thing. Like, what would Lou do, as we always jokingly say? Like, what would Lou Amarello do? Which is jump down on the bench and get behind the bench.
Lou did do that. Glenn Sater did it once too.
Yeah, that's what because when a GM jumps behind the bench and the GM's the guy who makes the trades, that can get the team going a little bit, Right. And the GM then can, and some GMs want to do that just because they get to see the locker room better. They get to see what's actually happening.
Right.
That's what Lou would always say. Lou's like, I need to see the dynamic better than I can up here. I got to see it every minute. And then the Lou would make his decisions based on that. I don't understand why Holmgren did do that, because the one thing about Holmgren that everybody will tell you, and I've always liked this about him. I remember one time talking to an agent who was trying to make a deal with Paul Holmgren shortly after Holmgren took over from Clark. And he was trying to make, and Holmgren was the first GM who actually said to him, my man mentioned this before, actually said to him, I don't know the answer to that question you're asking me, but I will get the answer and I will get right back to you. And that really made this agent respect Paul Holmgren in a big way, because so many people in the hockey world will pretend to know what's going on. Right. And if they don't know what's going on, will make a quick, like, oh, this is what's, because they feel emasculated if they don't know the answer. Holmgren was perfectly willing to say, I don't know the answer. I will go find the answer out. I will come back to you. And that the agent said that was the first time, believe it or not, that a GM had ever said that to him. And he said,
I'll tell you this too, and then we can get off the Flyers. If it were me, I would. I know something else might happen.
Yeah.
If it were me, I would actually tell most GMs that just about everybody's available, Claude Giroux included. I would.
All right, and yeah, I do want to talk about that too. All right, but and this we'll talk a little trades like this is a good way to get off the Flyers.
Well,
but let's talk about Gordon for a second, because there's possible now, because we have a lot of Flyers fans. We have a huge number of people listening right now. There's a lot of Flyers fans out there that are interested in what's happening. Obviously, it's happening on.
I can tell you, Gordon was good with the Islanders. He was good with the development of Kyle Okposo, Josh Bailey, and a young John Tavares. He was very good.
I've heard he was very intelligent.
And he was an assistant in Toronto, I think, under Ron Wilson. So, and Ron Wilson in Carlisle for a bit. So, yeah, I mean,
that's a fiery side. I've seen it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good interim hire to pass the torch to somebody if that's what the intention here. But as for like interim for the rest of the year, I get this. It smacks of Peter Horacek to me in Toronto.
I mean, the fact that they made him an interim is all but completely admitting that you're going after Quenneville, right? Like, there's no
somebody else, him or somebody else. Yes.
Yeah. Who else? I mean, Vino, but I don't think Holmgren and Vino don't get along. I don't see that at all. It's the Flyers and Comcast have made it known that they want to go after a big time coach. And I talked to somebody, and it was one of the more interesting things. And this goes into the prospect.
Mike Keaton's out there.
Giroux. All right,
Mike Keaton.
Trying to keep this on topic here, and also add other things. Okay, Russ. So
on the rails.
As you know, Russ. Okay, you're Claude. Let's say you're Claude Giroux. Okay, and you grew up in the Hockey Canada system. Okay, you tried to impress people for Hockey Canada because you wanted to make the junior team. You wanted to make different things. You wanted to get drafted well. Of course, you wanted to make the Olympic team. And Quenneville has always been there. He's always been part of that Hockey Canada system that you've looked to. And he's always been one of these guys who you've been trying to impress. Like Quenneville has been a guy who is more of a father figure to Claude Giroux and players of that ilk and that age than, of course, a Hakstol would be, because a Hakstol is closer in age to them, and not somebody that they since they were knee high to a grasshopper knew they had to impress, right? Quenneville is somebody that, so the positive thing that Flyers fans I think can look forward to is that, because I think that's going to matter in Philadelphia right now with these players, because they're going to bring a guy in who is more of a father figure and has won 3 Stanley Cups and can hold those 3 Stanley Cups in front of them and say, I am better than you, basically. Whereas with Hakstol, you have a guy who's coming in who is a longer shot to make the NHL than Claude Giroux was.
Well, okay. Well, and one thing I'll say that just to, and then we should move on to other things.
Yeah.
For the next 2-3 years, if Joel Quenneville is the coach of the Philadelphia Flyers, how many blogs will you write? How many rumors will be out there connecting every Chicago Blackhawk to the Philadelphia Flyers? Because I'm telling you right now, it'll be Kane. It'll be what's that?
It already started.
Right? Crawford, apparently he's out with a concussion again.
Yeah, it'll be Kane, it'll be Taves, it'll be Keith, it'll be Seabrook, it'll be every guy not nailed down will be rumored to go to the Philadelphia Flyers.
Well, that's true. And because Quenneville fought very hard for a lot of those guys in Chicago, and part of the reasons he's out of Chicago was because of that. And so I think that they wanted to trade Keith and Seabrook last year, and Quenneville fought to keep them there. The issue with Quenneville, now I do think that I will try not to write too many of those rumors over the years, because
if it's out there,
you're right. It's gonna. I mean, you're gonna have to do a lot of digging. But I think that Duncan Keith is the key component. Now that is, and what people have to realize is another thing that coaches need, and I don't think Hakstol really ever had this. Not that I could tell, at least. If he had it, it was in like guys like Vander, these
Vandevelde.
Yeah, or guys that he just loved and played all the time.
Knight. What happened to Corbin Knight? Where's he?
Right. Guys who would sell his system, right?
Right.
Hakstol, Hitchcock always said the most important thing on his team was not his assistant coaches, but that one player who would sell the system to the players. And that was Keith Primo in Philadelphia. When Primo went down, Hitch was done. It was, Backus in St. Louis. When Backus was, Hitch was done. So, remember, Hitchcock and Quenneville have also worked together a lot. These are both part of Hockey Canada.
Yes, they've worked together, yes.
So I think that Quenneville will get somebody from Chicago to do that, to help sell the system. And I think the person to do that with this is Duncan Keith, because of the situation. Now he is.
Well, yeah, it would be similar to, say, Patrick Marleau in Toronto, because Marlowe played for Babcock on 2 Olympic teams. He's from Saskatchewan, like Babcock. Babcock wanted him to come in, and Marlowe has sold. He's had a great influence on Marner and Matthews, so I could see that. But I mean, that contract, and we'll get off of this, but that contract is so laced with potential landmines.
I mean, here's my last dose of reality, then we should move on. The Flyers have something like a 7.3% chance of making the playoffs.
Right.
They're now playing Detroit tomorrow with really not much of a game plan because they can't have much of a game plan.
Mm-hmm.
And then they're going to play Columbus, and they're going to play Nashville. And then Columbus. I mean, come on. This is not – none of this is ideal. None of it.
Yeah, it isn't. And, I mean, I like I said, I mean, I don't think they can turn this around quick enough to get back into the race. And if they try to, if they try to accelerate a turnaround by making trades, I mean, if you get a coach like Quenneville, it's not a short-term thing, it's a long-term thing. But if you bring him in and then you say, okay, we're still going for the playoffs, I think I almost think you're lying to the fans because it's not happening. But anyway, let's move on to this because this happened on Saturday.
Okay, hold on. Sorry, I know you want to move on. Okay, that was a source who was kind of connected to this, and he's very connected. I'll say I can't say what more than that, but anyway, he says that the Flyers are not sure if Quenneville is going to make them wait till after the season or not, and that they're not, but there might be something where the Flyers basically make some kind of agreement that, he's not going anywhere else. Now I don't know how they can do that, but
is this a pinky agreement?
Yeah, this is basically I don't know, maybe he has to leave.
I pinky swear.
Leave like some of his gold medals as collateral. I don't know. Something along the lines.
I mean, I'll say this. I totally trust you and your source. This doesn't shock me only because this is just par for the course how everything else is going.
Okay, and take that as gospel, Eck. If that's the case, then Scott Gordon is Peter Horacek.
Which is Mike. You think this is you in the way Mike thinks, and not everybody has to think the way Mike thinks. But the way Mike thinks is this would probably be the best case scenario for the Flyers. If they know they can get Quenneville at the end of the year, then just lose out this year and present Joel Quenneville with Jack Hughes or something like that, and then you have, and I can see that side of things.
So I guess because they say the draft and everything's important, and the scouts are out still doing their jobs, but player development, I guess they're going to hang a sign on that window until about May or June.
How so? What do you mean exactly?
Okay, well, Scott Gordon's up with the big club. We don't know who's taking over Lehigh. That person's going to affect who plays and doesn't play unless Scott Gordon's going to be on the phone with Lehigh every day telling this guy what to do, but he's still not there behind the bench. Those players are going to have a second coach there that really didn't barter for one. So things just normally just change a little bit. Carter Hart's up with the big club, which is going to change because Alex Lynen's down there. A lot of things are changing. And for player development, the fewer changes are best.
A lot can, like I said, and I'm going to blog about this and write about this. A lot can change. You're right, Russ, but a lot can change.
Even if it changes in the next 3 days, all of this is still occurring.
No, it's all occurring. As far as Lyon and Carter Hart goes, if Carter Hart starts the next 4 games or whatever for the Flyers, then I am completely wrong. But I get the impression that this is a temporary thing while a trade is trying to be worked out. That were Lions involved, and then that brings somebody in here, whether it's the 2 guys I hear are Jonathan Quick and Craig Anderson. Okay, so those are the 2 guys. So the Flyers are pissed off apparently that Craig, I heard this too, that Craig Anderson is playing so many games.
I heard a report. It was either Pierre LeBrun or Elliot Friedman that said that teams that are inquiring on Anderson are very hesitant because he's had an injury history and he's faced the most shots in the league,
by
about 200 shots.
Okay, wait.
Ottawa's not going.
Let's be completely 100% honest about something here. Let's be 100% honest about this.
Never. Good.
There is no goalie that they're going to get that doesn't have an injury history at this time of the season.
Oh yeah, there's no way. You're right. And Jonathan Quick could just be another guy who's on the IR, right?
Right.
And that's very possible, and there's no,
when you're looking for that this time of year, this is the chance you're going to take.
Right.
No, I mean, unless you're going to get, what's his name from Jake Allen, and that's like,
right. And Jake Allen actually has had a very good history of not being hurt.
Actually, right. But
he just doesn't play very well.
But he's not a good goalie right now. So I mean, so here's the thing: if this is true that Quenneville does, the Flyers don't know yet whether Quenneville is going to come in a week or in 4 months. Then, that also allows us to look a little bit more into the complicated nature of this. The Flyers, if the Flyers were going for somebody simple, they wouldn't have handled it like this. They are bending over backwards to make this work for Quenneville, and because of that, that's why this whole situation looks so weird. So if you want, you don't even need an insider to know.
No, but that doesn't absolve them of all of this, because, like I said, Gordon could have been in place the whole time. They could have done that. They could have left Pickard where he was, knowing that goalies were getting hurt. And then when this guy or Quenneville got here, then they could have made all these changes.
Yes.
This is now what has happened here is, if they'd have won 3 games, Ek, are we even having this moment on the show?
Yes.
No, I don't believe we would be. I think
okay.
Would be. I think Hakstol would still be coaching practice today, and I think
you're right. They may have
the same plan behind the scenes.
You're right. Yes, you're right. Yeah, I do agree. Yeah, I should say yes, because I think that Hakstol was going to be gone. The second Quenneville was ready, but the problem was they thought they did that, but that doesn't work in the NHL.
You know what I mean? It's almost like it's just, what's the Sliminy Nickets? What is that?
What are you doing?
Lippity Snickets?
Thank you. It's a series of unfortunate events, but it's not a good way to manage it all.
Right, and this tells you very clearly that you don't even need an insider to tell you that they're going after Quenneville, because this is all has to do with the fact that Quenneville is putting some things out there that he's allowed to do because he's in control. And he's allowed to sit there and say, I'm not going to come till now. I'm not going to, whatever. He can do that. But the Flyers would never handle it like this if they weren't bad. If this was just Vigneault or somebody else, it would have been done. All so right. The fact of the matter is, this is what it is. They're going for Quenneville, whether or not they get him or not. I think they get him. It's when they get him. And
okay,
one thing I wanted before and this will be the last thing I say, I promise. But we can move on. But the one thing, the Flyers fans who are nervous or believe what Mike, I think, is sort of believes that that all of this is going to make Quenneville not want to come to the Flyers because he looks at them like a dysfunctional family. Remember, they're doing this for him. So he knows what's going on. So the fact is, like, he's not going to sit there and say that they are dysfunctional.
I can't say that that's not the case, because Mike Babcock came to Toronto and Babcock finished dead last overall, and that was the plan. So if but that's if Quenneville takes the job now. If he holds off until the beginning of next season, or he signs a contract after the year is over with, then he's going to expect order, and he's going to expect the management of the Flyers to provide him with some help, because there's clearly some fatal errors on this roster and in this organization that need to be corrected.
But the chat room has a very good point, and I want to acknowledge what Esmir has said in the chat room, and that is basically, what if another team contacts him and that's the team he chooses over the Flyers? That could definitely happen.
Yes,
that could happen, and that's why the Flyers are being so aggressive about this and trying to not.
But you are basically you are pushing all your chips in on this guy, and if you don't get this guy, then what's the next plan?
Yeah, what is? I do not have any idea what the next plan is.
I'm not sure they do.
I know that they are so focused on this. I don't know. I think the next plan is Scott Gordon. I really do. I think that's the next plan.
Wow. All right.
But now, and that is crazy. But at the same time, he's had.
No, I mean, Scott Gordon's good. If they told me Scott Gordon was the coach now for the next 3 years, I would say, all right, you know what? Things are moving in the right direction. That's not what they're telling me. That they're not telling me that.
Well, no, they're not going to tell you that, because, but as interim coaches. They have had interim coaches before that turn into full-time coaches. It's possible that this works out that way. Anything is possible. I think that, what you have to realize here now, we did promise we would talk about whether Giroux should be traded or not.
Yeah.
And
we'll save that till tomorrow, because we know we're going to talk about this tomorrow too. So, but
and then tomorrow night we'll be at the game. So,
all right. This normally would have led off the show, because it's an interesting situation, and that's Patrick Berglund in Buffalo, because Saturday it was announced that he was suspended indefinitely for not showing up for a practice and some team function and then missing the plane. And now, from what I heard from Elliot Friedman, and this is interesting, he had a no-trade clause, some sort of limited no-trade clause that kicked in on July 1st. And I think the report indicated that his agent did not get the limited list to the St. Louis Blues on July 1st, and that was the day that the Blues traded him in the O'Reilly deal. And he has not played well with Buffalo. He started off as the second-line center. He's been moving down progressively in the lineup to the point that he's playing on the wing on the fourth line or centering the fourth line. And it looks and it sounds like he never wanted to be traded. He had played his entire career with the Blues. He never wanted to be traded to Buffalo. And now it could be a Shipachoff situation. It could be a situation where this guy doesn't like it here so much. And this is like the only negative thing that has happened with the Sabres this year. Everything is positive. Everything's going great. Now all of a sudden some guy says, I don't want to be in Buffalo. And I don't know what the reason is. We're probably never going to find out. But this could be a situation where he says, I'll go to Sweden. I'll go to the KHL and just void my contract.
Right.
I think that's what's going to end up happening.
Another person just texted me that they heard the same about Quenneville telling the Flyers he's still not sure whether he can come now or at the end of the year. So that is, and that I think is a little bit different because I do now. I don't know. I'm sorry. Let's talk about Berglund. I got to finish this thought. So anyway, I think that, remember, the Flyers and Quenneville haven't officially spoken until probably the last hour. I would venture to say that that right after Hakstol was fired, they got permission to talk to Chicago. From Chicago to talk to him pretty quickly. And so now we're going to start hearing things that might be a little bit more exact, where before the Flyers knew at least that he was open to it for sure. So that's where we are. All right. Berglund is interesting because, as much as did he love it in St. Louis? Because I don't remember that being the case. Like, I don't remember Berglund.
He was always rumored to be traded.
He was always rumored to be traded. And he was always like thrown all over on different lines. He always complained about ice time. It's like, I don't remember, like, if he's pining to go back to that situation, you have to wonder, maybe this is just Berglund.
Let's be fair about one thing. There is something that's going on Twitter that is worthy of mentioning. Similar thing happened with Darryl Kyle of the Houston Astros, and that didn't end well. We haven't actually heard or seen Patrick Berglund since this has been reported. We do hope he's okay, because it could be
another good thing. Yeah, that's a really good point, Russ. I agree with that.
But if you're, take that out of the equation, and hopefully, we're right that there's nothing nothing bad going on here. But if you're just looking at the hockey aspect, if you're looking at the nuts and bolts of it, Berglund is probably the most untradeable contract on the Sabres right now. He's got another 3 years at a little under $4 million after this season. He's not having a good year. Now he did have some good years with the Blues, but it's a situation where if he's like just wanting out of Buffalo, Jason Botterill is in a tenuous position because he's got absolutely no leverage. It would be similar to like just trading him for nothing just to get rid of him, and that contract is tough to move.
Right. No, you're right, 100% right.
He had 23 goals 2 years ago. Last year he had 17 goals in 57 games, and this year 23 games, 2 goals, 2 assists. So
it does sound like, let's hope he's okay. Let's hope everything's fine with that. Someone just sent me a question too that they had heard. Again, sorry, we're going back to the Flyers once in a while. We're going to have to hear because this is just breaking as we talk here. But could the Flyers hire Quenneville in another capacity for the remainder of the year?
Well, that's how Quenneville was hired in Chicago.
Right. Remember, he came into Chicago.
He was hired as an advisor while Denny Savard was the coach, and then he was fired 3 or 4 games into the season.
Right. I do have to point this out too.
But there's a difference with that one right now.
Right. And I do have to point this out as well. So it does look like Bob Rotruck, who does Rotruck, who does reporting out of Lehigh Valley, is saying that it looks like Kerry Huffman may be the interim.
That's a good call.
He's never been a head coach before, though.
No, he's never been a head coach before, but I do. Kerry is a smart guy.
You get what I'm saying now. So again, now you've got Lehigh. The guy in Lehigh who's in charge has never been a head coach.
And the reporter from the Phantoms is very good too.
Oh no, he's excellent.
And he was yesterday saying that Gordon was going to be the interim coach. By the way,
yeah, but I said a long time ago I thought he would be, but then it sort of evaporated. But my point is, for player development here, yes, they know the guy, but now you're elevating a guy that you really didn't plan on elevating, but now you're doing it because of circumstance.
The guy I was hoping that they would bring to the Phantoms was, and I don't know where he's coaching right now, but Kevin Dineen.
He was coaching the women's team, but it may have just been internationally.
Yeah, it was. I don't think he's coaching anywhere. I'll check.
I'm a huge Kevin Dineen fan.
Right.
As far as him as
you get what I'm saying here. Now you've.
Oh, I get what you're saying. Yeah, totally. I mean, the other guy that I would have thought about was Luke Richardson too. Like I thought Luke Richardson, if the Flyers are going to go for ex players, Luke Richardson, who's been a coach, he's the defensive coach for Edmonton right now. Apparently, I think isn't that where he is?
Luke Richardson?
Yeah,
I'm not sure.
I'm not sure where he is right this moment.
Definitely, I think he's the defensive coach for the Oilers. But anyway, we can look that up. But I think that this will be
Kevin Dineen was fired alongside Quenneville in Chicago. He was his assistant.
Well, there you go. He could come over then.
Yeah, he definitely could come over. But here's the difference, and why the person who's asked me about could they hire Quenneville in a different capacity. Here's the issue with that. Okay, are you going to hire him as an advisor for he's making $6 million doing nothing in Chicago?
Right.
It doesn't matter. I don't think the monetary value matters anymore.
No, whatever. The way
like a $200,000 advisory job.
Right. The way it works, Zach, is that whatever he makes, as say he gets hired. Like I remember this with when Brian Burke got fired with the Leafs. He got
not every contract's that way though.
I know, but
let's say it's not. I don't think. Does this matter? Money matter to Comcast?
Not Comcast. I'm talking about the Quenneville.
Right.
But Quenneville will get paid regardless.
Right. What I'm saying is, if he earns a $200,000 salary from the Flyers as an advisor, you just subtract that from the $6 million. Right. That's the way it works. So they would be paying him $5.8.
But the Hawks. Part of the reason the Hawks give the Flyers permission to talk to him is to get that freaking contract off their books.
Okay, but here, even if Quenneville is in just as an advisor. Gee, you don't think he's going to have a morning meeting with Scott Gordon every day?
Right. I know.
Come on.
Yeah, I know. Oh, man, I got something else coming in. Talk for a second, guys. Sorry.
Right, so, other than this, Mike, I'm trying to think what else is another.
Well, no, I wanted to.
I know what you wanted to talk about. You wanted to talk about the Winnipeg game.
Well, yeah, I mean, and a lot of people were saying, there's your preview of the Stanley Cup Final, Winnipeg and Tampa Bay, and
they're wrong. They're all 100% wrong, but it's okay.
Well, I don't think they're 100%.
Minnesota will be there against Tampa.
Yeah, there you go.
That's why they're 100% wrong.
Yes, I told Peter over text yesterday that it was you're right. You may have gotten the Winnipeg part right, but it's going to be Toronto. but I mean, it was a very exciting, very entertaining game. Yeah. I just look at the fact that now Tampa has got back Vasilevsky. They still don't have Strawman back, but I mean, I don't think the thing that happened to them last year, where they lost to Washington, is going to happen again. They're just a scary, deep, talented team, and they have a window of this year where they have Braden Point still on his ELC. They have Tyler Johnston playing third line center.
Yeah,
they have everybody locked up. They don't know they're gonna lose some of their veteran defensemen. So like Braden Colburn and Girardi will be gone. So this is their last kick at the can in terms of winning a Stanley Cup. And Girardi didn't win one with the Rangers, and I'm sure he'll be properly motivated to win one with Tampa Bay. And I don't even think that they really have to go out there and make a trade at the deadline. They might want to, but they're set. I mean, I think that they should be considered the favorite. I mean,
they just have to be healthy.
They just have to be healthy. And the one thing I have to say is,
I can't make them the favorite yet. I always make the champion the favorite. the Capitals are still the favorite. I'm sorry.
Until they get unseated, right? But I mean, I have to say that, and the Maple Leafs are a very good team. They're right now they're a point behind the Sabres, but that they're sometimes a broken clock is right twice a day.
Right.
But you look at the Leafs right now, and Kyle Dubas had a press conference that I'm going to write about in a little bit. He's not denying that this team needs improvements, but he's saying, well, I don't think that the toughness thing is that much of a problem. He's sort of downplaying all the things that he needs to address,
because now he's responsible for them.
Right, and see, the thing is, a good general manager will do that for one simple reason. All he's doing by saying, "Oh yeah, we need defense. Oh yeah, we need toughness," is the price goes up on toughness and defense.
So I got to also stop. There was a big story yesterday after the Ranger game. Henrik Lundqvist got very aggravated. They lost 4-3, but it was a game where really Lundqvist played out of his mind and was hung out to dry so many times. Mm-hmm. So after the game, he came out and said, it's one thing to lose when you're ready, prepared, and play hard, but I think the first two periods, it's not the way we've been playing. And then he said, mistakes are going – it's at home in front of our fans. We need to work harder. Mistakes are going to happen. I make mistakes. We all make mistakes. But we can't accept not being ready to fight for another one here. I thought we weren't ready. The position we're in, we have to battle every night. It's not going to be great every night, but at least you got to battle. That's upsetting when you see that. And the coach, David Quinn, pretty much said it's ridiculous how good Lundqvist was the first two periods because it was as bad at two periods as we've had all year. I mean, they out-hit us, out-skated us, out-passed us, outshot us. They out-everythinged us except for the goaltending. This is how you know the Rangers rebuild is over after this season. That's how you know.
Because he's going to lose patience in it.
And if they lose Lundqvist, they are really in trouble for the next 2-3 years. Because even if you say, well, bring Shesterkin over, you don't really know what he is. That's all.
Right. Now, one other thing, you've written about this, and many people have written about it. Kyle Dubas was asked today about the offer sheet scenario for Austin Matthews and Mitch Marner. He says they're aware of it. They've planned for it. They have the cap room next year, even if both of them are offer sheeted to match the offers. And he basically, intimated that he would. And he said this: when I look around the league right now, for whatever reason, it seems like the Toronto Maple Leafs are the only team that is going to be the target of an offer sheet. Seems interesting to me, which means this is media driven. And until somebody is signed to an offer sheet, I believe the gentleman's agreement still reigns in the NHL, that these general managers will not cross each other, because if you screw one of them, the other one is going to screw you back. And you don't want to screw with the Maple Leafs when it comes to financial situations, because they will bury you. So I don't believe, first of all, I don't believe Mitch Marner, who's been a lifelong Leaf fan. I mean, if he gets under, if they try to lowball him, then maybe it's a possibility, but I don't think they're going to. And Austin
Marner, that's a different story. Sorry.
Well, we'll not talk about that. But I'm just saying, if anybody's going to get an offer sheet, it could be Braden Point, it could be Mikko Rantanen. I think they have just as much of a chance of getting offer sheeted than Mitch Marner and Austin Matthews. So. We'll see what happens.
Well, the only thing, yes. For the most part, yes. I'm going to have to plug my thing in here. For the most part, yes, you're right. They just have much of a chance. But I do think that there's something to the fact that you got these two players coming in at the same time, and that teams know that, they can't afford to pay them both.
No, they're hoping they can't afford it.
They're hoping, but they can. That's what I'm saying. They can.
Right.
Yeah.
Most organizations can't, but I believe they have $20 million in cap space going into next year. Now everybody thinks that that's going to be eaten up by Matthews and Marner, and that's more than likely. But Dubas said today, he hinted that we'd love to have Jake Gardiner, but it depends on what he's going to come in for, which is code for "see you later, Jake." So I mean, they're making plans for, okay, if the disaster scenario happens and offer sheets are extended to both of those guys, they can handle it.
Yeah,
and they can. So, don't sweat, Leaf fans. You're not going to see Austin Matthews wearing the Arizona Coyotes.
Mike guarantees it, Mike. This is a personal guarantee, right?
Yes, this is personal guarantee. I'll come over and wash your car if I.
Mike is telling you right now that Austin Matthews will never play for another NHL team.
No, I didn't. No. That's like your bet here with the Buffalo Sabres and the Leafs.
More than that,
I'm disputing the rules on that one because
I get a penny for every time the Leafs are ahead of the Sabres in the standings, and you get a penny for every time the Leafs are ahead of the Sabres, and I get $1 for every time the Sabres are ahead.
Yeah.
We made this in the beginning of the year.
Yes,
I'm $23 up. So yeah.
Yeah, and I'm a millionaire.
You get pennies because no one thought the Leafs would be behind them. So anyway, this yes. The fact of the matter is that I don't think. I mean, Marner's incredibly valuable. We had a really heated debate on the weekend in our own text. I was funny. We had this long debate. I'm like, we should be doing right now. We should be doing a freaking podcast because we were like getting, so we'll talk about that for sure because there's a big debate out there. This is something we'll talk about tomorrow. What should teams do if they're interested in getting Drew Doughty? I'm going to throw that out as a teaser. Okay. The concept of,
call his agent.
Yeah, no, but if you want to trade for Drew Doughty, what is it going to take and how much should you give up to get Drew Doughty? Because I'm hearing he's wants out. Okay. So, and if he wants out and he's as talented as he is, still has game left.
You're going to have to be a team that can squeeze an $11 million 29-year-old defenseman.
Contract. So, I mean, what, how much is it worth it? Basically, we'll talk about it tomorrow. But
that's fine.
Good thing to leave with, I think. We appreciate all you guys watching today. Remember, if you like what we do here, because we love doing it, we want to keep doing it. Go to patreon.com/hockey and support the show. It can be $1 a month or whatever it is. Anything at all. If you feel you get value from this.
Whatever. It can't be a quarter. It's got to be $1 or don't bother.
Yeah. And if you can't afford to, it's okay. We're not killing you. We're not making this. We're not going to make this a private. We're not the Atlantic, for crying out loud. We're not going to do anything like that. We're just
Athletic.
The Athletic. Sorry. Thank you. The Athletic. We're not the Athletic. We're not going to charge you for rumors ever. We don't do that. But the fact of the matter is, if you like what we do here, you get something out of it. If it's worth what you pay for a Starbucks per week or whatever.
Yeah. If you want to give us $1,000 a month, I mean, look at me. I'm starving.
$1,000 a month, and the three of us come to your house and do a podcast. Okay, that I will guarantee you.
As long as you provide catering.
It's like we'll grab some drink and toast and a couple hoagies, Mike, and we'll meet you there.
Okay.
So the fact of the matter is, if you can support us, patreon.com/hockey. The money goes directly to the people involved in the podcast and only them. And please help. More of you, a couple more have done it last month or so. We really appreciate it. Patreon.com/hockey, and you can support the show. As for now, tomorrow we'll be back with more
Drew Doughty talk.
Flyers news. And we don't like to be Flyers buzz here, but we right now they are the story. And
tune in about 1:30 and we'll talk about the rest of the NHL.
Yeah, we'll talk about the rest of the week tomorrow. I mean, because the trade freeze deadline is coming. It is Wednesday, and that's for everybody, not just the Flyers. So we will, there's other teams that will try to do something at that point, I am sure. Remember, without the buzz, it is just hockey, and enjoy your night.